All right, so now we're taking a look at Soviet posters. We studied a little bit about Soviet history. You've done those readings. Let's start with this poster. When is this poster from?
1917.
1917, 1918 is actually the publishing date that's on it. So all the posters come from the Soviet government, and all of them will have a date on them. But what I want you to tell me about is the historical context. What are the events? What was happening in the USSR at this time period? What was happening around this time period?
The Russian Revolution.
Russian Revolution, 1917. What did the Russian Revolution do?
It converted Russia to a communist country.
Very good. So this is from 1 year in, the year of the proletarian dictatorship, right? This is from 1917-19, so very, very early in, from the new communist government. What are the messages about the revolution? Alana, what's one of the messages about the revolution here?
It's a very positive portrayal of it.
Where do you see that it's a positive portrayal?
I think in the colors and in the facial expressions of the people. It's a very glorious looking picture with like the riches that are at their feet and the sunrise in the background.
Great. Anything else? You raise your hand if you agree this is a glorious representation of the revolution. What's some other evidence? Carrie, what's some other evidence that it's a glorious revolution?
Well, there's chains are broken on the ground and they're holding like different tools and sort of like standing over it all.
What tools are they holding?
Like a big giant hammer.
Big giant hammer and a big sickle. Gintana representing what?
Communism.
Communism. The hammer and the sickle, which represent what, by the way, in communism? What do the hammer and sickle represent?
The working class.
The working class, absolutely. And specifically, which two groups of the working class? Brett?
The farmers and the industrial workers.
The industrial workers, the urban workers, and the proletariat. Any other symbols? And those are symbols of communism. Any other symbols that are being used here, Josh?
The smoke in the background.
Symbolizing what?
The industrialization with the hammer.
Good or bad thing? From the perspective of the Soviet government?
Positive.
Positive. What makes you say positive?
Well, because the smoke is like with the sun. It's not even seeming like pollution. It's just like part of the earth. And
We may see that as negative today, but back then, why was industrialization seen as positive?
Progressive.
Progressive,
Created money.
money, jobs, etc. Other symbols?
The red flags that they're flying.
Symbolizing?
Communism.
Excellent. Other symbols that you see? Anybody else? What about here, on the ground? That shield. What might that symbolize?
like the fight they went through.
The fight?
There.
They've been fighting. Who were they fighting against?
Capitalists.
Capitalists in some cases, but in the case of the Tsar, what else is down there along with the shield?
The crown.
The crown.
Former Tsar.
Former Tsar and the leader. And you referenced the chains. What do the chains represent?
They're sort of being freed from them.
Excellent. So this is a poster from 1918 speaking to the glories of the revolution. What historical context and events does this poster speak to? Take a minute. Take a look at it. It's a complex one.
That's Stalin's face and
That's Stalin's face. In what?
the sickle.
The sickle at his side. Tell me more about what you see in that face. What else do you see in that face?
I think that's blood, isn't it?
Is it blood? What is this speaking to? Brett?
Well, it says collectivization on the side.
Yes.
So I think this is referring to when Stalin forced people to join collective farms and it resulted in starvation.
Very good. Now, that's coming back to you now. What time period is it talking about in Soviet history?
1929.
1929, right up there in the poster. But when was this produced?
1988.
Why would the Soviet government, is this pro-Stalin or anti-Stalin?
Anti-Stalin.
Anti-Stalin. What's its position on forced collectivization of agriculture?
Bad.
Francesca?
It's bad, and it's kind of also intertwining Stalin and collectivization and communism, and kind of putting the two together as one.
And in fact, the death of millions of people during that time associated with Stalin's policies. But this was produced by the Soviet government in 1988. Why would the Soviet government be producing a poster in 1988 critiquing and criticizing? Right?
Well, this was the reform government at the end of the USSR.
Led by
Gorbachev.
Mikhail Gorbachev.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and why would Gorbachev be putting this poster together?
As part of the perestroika and glasnost,
Meaning?
meaning a kind of opening arms to capitalist ways a little bit.
And critiquing the previous governments of the Soviet Union. And you'll see that later on. But let's go to this poster. 1942. What historical event dominated Soviet history at this time? Francesca?
Well, this is during World War II, when the Soviet Union was at war.
Yes. And what was its stage? Was it winning the war?
No.
We're seeing a shaking of heads. Marlena, what makes you say it wasn't winning the war?
Well, there's a girl in the arms of the man, young man.
Or woman? Yeah?
I can't tell, but and the child is bleeding, and there's fire in the background, and the expressions on the person holding the child's face is like anything. It's like help me, and then the words at the top, avenge us.
Avenge us. Is this about victory?
No.
What is this about?
Like, the revenge. But, also the colors, it's really dark. It's like, and the red letters,
Yes. What does the red letters signify?
probably communism.
Maybe communism. What else? Blood, maybe along with that. So, what was the turning point in the war? Anybody remember? What was the turning point in the war, in World War II, for the Soviet Union? You remember, Brett?
Was it Stalingrad?
It was the Battle of Stalingrad. Before or after this, do you think? Very good. You're inferring that after, and it was in 43. It was, so this is really the great defeat of the Soviet Union, at this point. Good. I'm going to do one more. One more. Oh no, I'm going to do two more. This is from 1962. What was going on in 1962? Soviet Union. History of the Soviet Union. Francesca, any idea?
I mean, this was post-World War II when tensions were high with the U.S. as the two remaining superpowers.
What do we call that time period?
The Cold War.
The Cold War. Does this reflect the Cold War? Think back to your history that you've been saying. 1962. What events were happening in 62? Cold War related events. Any guesses?
Was it the Cuban Missile Crisis?
Cuban Missile Crisis. Excellent. And what does this poster suggest from the Soviet perspective? What's the statement here?
They're the victims.
They're the victims of what? What's going on in this image?
It looks like a bombing something. It's just like shielding yourself in this bright light.
What kind of bomb may have just gone off?
A nuclear bomb.
A nuclear bomb, possibly, by the bright light and the shielding of herself, and a statement about the tensions between the Soviet Union. Which country was in the lead with nuclear weapons in 1962? Yeah,
The United States.
the United States was in the lead. Later on, the Soviet Union kept catching up. But at this point, the US was in the lead. So what was the Soviets' position on nuclear weapons? Yeah, it wanted to hold back the United States' lead in terms of nuclear weapons. So stop war. And then finally, let's go to this one. 1988. What's the context of Soviet history in 1988? What was going on? 1988. What's going on in 88? Kyra?
Reforms.
It was the reforms by
Gorbachev.
Gorbachev. And what kinds of reforms?
It was the perestroika and glasnost,
Yes.
introducing limited capitalism, and we don't have to do.
And in order to introduce limited capitalism, what did Gorbachev need to challenge in the Soviet Union? What did he need to challenge in the Soviet Union?
The command economy.
The command economy?
Former policies.
Yes. Former policies, and what were the primary focus of the economic policies prior to Gorbachev? What were the economic policies? How did the economy run? You said the
By the
command.
government.
Run by the government. So decisions about things like how you would plow your fields, who made those decisions? Government. Right? What's the statement here? What's the statement here in this poster from 1988 by the government?
It's telling that the government is run by, like, the agriculture is run by big people and
The bureaucrats in this case.
right, yeah, and it should be like put back in the hands of the tiny little farmer.
Excellent, excellent.